This is your friendly enabler, and I would just like to say before we get started, in the stash shop we have a few new items for sale. To our Posca family, there is now the bronze 3M pen available, so it goes with its silver and gold friends. So if you fancy one of these, they're great for greetings cards, and we're getting to that time of year, so you can head over and find that. I also have in stock some of the Zest It pencil blending medium. So this is basically like odorless mineral spirit, but it smells of oranges. And this is really good for blending out your colour pencil. I like to use it on my base layer of pencil when I'm doing animal portraits because it doesn't damage the tooth of the paper, and then I can go back in over and over and over with my pencils and get some really fine details. The other thing I've done is I've topped up the Copic situation, which kind of ties in quite nicely today. I do have a selection of used Copic sketch markers, but also the Copic chow markers. Now I call the chow markers the baby version of the sketch markers. The reason being is they have exactly the same tips on them, so they have the chisel tip and they have the brush tip. The only difference is the barrel itself is smaller, so it holds less ink, and they come in a range of colours that's smaller than the full range in the sketch. So you can go and check them out over on the website down here. Maybe treat yourself or start buying some gifts for someone if you celebrate Christmas. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Colour Cave, where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem, and today we're looking at the Scrawlrchallenge from the October Scrawlrbox. I have struggled with this prompt, and I've been thinking about it for well over a week. This is not going to be a traditional, oh, Jem's going to pull all the supplies out and she's going to create a finished piece of art. But I wanted to talk about the paper first of all. Somebody in the comments under the unboxing video reminded me that we got sent an email by Scrawlrbox to say that some of these pads have been glued upside down, so the right side of the paper is actually at the back, and I'd completely forgotten about that email, so I went and tried that out, and my pad is glued the right way round. So when I was showing you the blending in that unboxing video, which I'll link in the description and the end card if you haven't seen it, it was the right side of the paper. I just wanted to clarify that. So our Scrawlrchallenge prompt was out of the lamp, and I unfortunately had one of those situations, and it happens to me quite a lot. I'd be curious to know if it happens to you guys as well. You get an idea and you kind of get locked into that idea, and then you just can't get away from it. I tried thumbnailing things out and trying different things, and I kept arriving back at the same spot. So what that means today is this is actually going to be a practice piece. This is going to be a draft piece. It's not going to be a finished artwork. What I would like to do is create this idea in coloured pencil, and that's really going to be my finished piece. So if you like what you see when we're getting near the end, let me know in the comments if you want to see the pencil version as a finished picture, because I'll quite happily film that and share it with all of you too. So the reason that this has caused me so many issues is that my idea is basically we've got a slightly alternative lamp in that it's not going to be a genie's lamp, which I think would have been the sort of default maybe that would have come out of this prompt. And I've got a bit of an obsession of hurricane lamps, and they look a little bit like this. Here's one of my reference photos. So these kind of lamps. And what I'm thinking is that maybe we've got a slightly wayward genie, and he's been trying to get out of his lamp on his own without someone having to rub it and make wishes and all that kind of jazz. What I wanted to do was draw the lamp as if it's toppled over and the glass is broken in, you know, round where the actual light is, and he's managed to escape. The problem is trying to get a reference photo of one of these lamps lying on its side. So I'd done some, you know, like initial sketches like this, just to sort of get a feel for it. But the problem is that when they topple onto their side, they're not going to lie like this, because these parts stick out and there's one either side, so it's going to tilt and it's going to be lying on its, on its back. So these parts here are going to rotate round. Now, when it comes to things like that, especially when it comes to inorganic structures, I really struggle with stuff like that. And I haven't been able to get a good reference photo, and I'm actually at the point where I just want to go buy one of these lamps and turn it on its side and use a reference from life. So that's kind of what I'm looking at today. I'm going to try and create a sort of backdrop so that this lamp is in fact toppled on its side, but it's leaning up against something. So I've got that as a sort of 3/4 turn, And I think that's as good a place as any to start with, to be perfectly honest, today. And as I say, I'll investigate it more and do a lot more drawing and try and, twist that and get that angle right. So I will be using a bit more of the fine liner today as well, because I figured this is a good opportunity to practice some hatching and stuff as well, which I don't do very often. So yeah, we're definitely an alternative video today. I've managed to get one reference photo from someone who wanted to help me out, which was really, really nice. And that I'm basically working from that. So I just need to start blocking in the shapes. Now, these lamps are quite complicated. There's quite a lot to them. But they can be broken down into simple shapes fairly easily without too much hassle. So even if we just have a simplified version to begin with, then I will be more than happy. Straight away, there's a box here in the background that the lamp's going to be leaning against, but I want this middle section clear where the glass case is, because I want it to be really obvious that that's broken and that's where our genie's escaped from, so I might have to move this about a little bit. But that's what I'm saying, I'm treating this more as an exercise rather than an actual finished piece. I don't know, maybe that's a good thing, because we don't do an awful lot of that here. Usually you guys get to see the good stuff at the end. So I'm just breaking this down into shapes. It's basically rectangles and there's a lot of them. So I'm just getting all those down first. One of the things I do find quite helpful, and I don't know if any of you guys do it too, if I'm drawing something at an odd angle, i.e. something that's not the right way up, sometimes I find it helpful to turn the paper round so that it's the right way up when I'm looking at it. One of the things I really struggled with when I was doing the initial sketch is there's like loads of weird angles on these lamps. I'm thinking even something like just like a box or something. I don't know where a lamp like this would be situated, especially if it's got a genie in it. That you answer that question for me if you want. But I feel like it would be somewhere as if it's been, I don't know, like as if it's been forgotten about or something like that. So like somewhere dusty, like an old attic or something like that. So we want to show the crack in the glass, and again in this particular medium, I'm not really sure how that's going to look or like how we're going to do it, but if I put a sort of crack in it there, and then there's maybe a hole of some description, and we could even put little shards of glass lying down here, something like that might work. This is the first time in a long time where I've been at that point where I'm really struggling with a prompt, and basically the escaping genie is just going to look like a sort of wisp of magical smoke or something he's just disappeared out and he's off ski, he's gone. This is just a nightmare, like nothing's going according to plan here at all. I can't get the placement of anything right. Nothing looks right. I have to say the pencil's erasing fairly well, and it's probably just as well. So we're gonna, if it's turned that way, we're gonna see the underside on this side. Okay, I'm slightly happier with the bottom part. I'm just going to work in increments here that I'm at. This is actually stressing me out. I'm going to ink in this first part that I'm happy with. I do think it's really important to show you guys this though, because so many people tell me that, they get really sort of disheartened by what they see going on. And I'm not saying I'm a great artist. I know I'm not a great artist. I'm perfectly aware of my place in the grand scheme of things. But we pop out all these videos and all the rest of it, and it's just not always that straightforward. And everyone goes through stuff like this. But my kind of argument for it is that if you don't persevere and you just give up, you're never going to overcome that hurdle. If you stick with it and you do persevere, and even if it doesn't come out exactly the way you want it, you've taken that step and I can guarantee you'll have learned something from it. And that's the most important thing, because that's how you get on and that's how you improve. So I am absolutely 100% happy to show you these steps. Now I know in my mind that this isn't going to be any great, mega artwork, but it doesn't need to be. I just need to learn from it. I definitely need to learn a bit more about drawing perspective and drawing things from odd angles. And I'm always up for a bit of fine liner work, because it's something I don't do very often because of my hand, and I just find it easier to do things in pencil because it's a bit more forgiving. This is a good exercise for me, as well as something for you to to be able to look at as well. Okay, so I'm happy with that bottom part. My goodness, can we have that in writing, please, Jem? This is actually a really bad habit to have. This isn't a good thing to do, because you absolutely want your structure down first before you put ink anywhere, because if one part is off, it makes it really difficult to change everything else. So I'd just like to point out that I'm happy with the structure and the proportions. If I wasn't, I would not put any ink down. Okay, you can see my lamp starting to emerge a little bit now. We're getting there very slowly. Very, very slowly. Oh, I've gone with a broken line effect here, and that just helps to denote glass. It's something I've used in quite a lot of illustrations before. The other thing is that these sort of protective arms that come out the side, they are angled. So I still want to be able to show that angle, but still show that it's tucked in behind because it's rolled back the way a little bit. And again, so this actually needs to come out a bit, maybe to there. It doesn't have to be severe. So I've still got that angle because they sit out like this. Again, if I just show you on my initial sketch, because they sit out like this, we still need to be able to show that these are diagonal rather than straight. But see, because you've got that twist on it, if you turn it that way and rotate that way, you can see there's still, it's very slight, but there's still an angle there, whereas mine was really straight across. I have to say the grippy pencil's not doing much for me. It doesn't feel any different to any other pencil, if I'm truthful. But once again, that was one of those things that was worth investigating. Oh, wow, that was painful. That was actually painful. I'm just going to get rid of all my pencil lines now. This is challenging. This is challenging. And to be fair, we can all do with a challenge once in a while, but I don't know what's wrong with me today. I really don't. This actually feels like one of my very, very early Scrawler challenges that I did on the channel. You know, one of the very first ones that I posted as a video. I'm kind of back in that place right now. Anyone would think it's 2018. Right, okay. So I've got my lamp. It's kind of twisted. It's not perfect, but again, I'm kind of doing this, like, you know, out of my brain rather than from a reference photo, which, when it's an unfamiliar object, and especially in ink, is not best for me. So now that I've got the lamp there, I'm going to put in I'm going to ground it here, and we can work away with that, and we'll maybe do some hatching with that. So I've got a nice open empty space here, and this is where my crack's going to be. I'll open up like a tiny little, almost like a diamond shape there, and then that lets me, all this stuff. I have to decide which colours are going where. In my head, this lamp's black, like the casing's black, but that's maybe not the case. So my genie dust, you know, my genie smoke, I want to be blue, and I think we can pale out the yellow for the actual glass casing in the lamp, which means I'm going to have a red lamp, and I don't really know how I feel about that, to be honest. But I'm thinking I'll maybe put some colour down and then hatch. Okay, right, let's have a red lamp. Let's not be scared about this. So I do need to show the curvature, particularly on this part here, so that makes me have to decide where the light source is. And I'm kind of thinking that maybe it should come from down the bottom, like this way. So I'm just going to draw myself a little arrow here. And the minute I know where my light source is coming from, it makes things a lot easier for me generally. I just find it easier to picture things in my mind. So what that means is this top side here, especially this arm that comes down, because that's tucked in round the back, that's going to be darker. There is going to be some light refracting and reflecting through this, but I'm not going to get that complicated because I don't think my brain can take it. We're going to have shadows on this side. Yeah, we're going to have shadows on this side of any overhanging part. So like there's going to be shadow round here because this protrudes. Right, okay. Oh, I've made this really complicated for myself. Okay, so I'm going to start just by putting in some lines. Now, normally I would use a much finer fine liner for this. I would have my outline slightly thicker, but that's absolutely a-okay. We work with what we've got here. That's the whole point of these challenges. And there'll maybe be a little bit here, but not much. And those lines should really have been pointing in the opposite direction, though, but never mind. Okay, so on this bottom section here, I'm going to take this strong red. I'm going to put a layer of yellow down first. Now, my thinking to this is that lanterns are, unless they're really dusty, they are shiny. You know, made of metal, therefore. So I'm just thinking if I pop a layer of this down first, think about, again, just light, you know, highlights and things, then we might be able to use that to our advantage. Now there is going to be a ridge all the way across here, so I'll put that in there. Now maybe there's a little tiny bit of light catching along that top edge there, just the way that's coming in. I'm not entirely sure. And again, I'm going to go back over this here, because I want there to be quite clear indications that there's like indents along these parts. Now, I have to say, I'm not having any problems. They did mention about yellow pens. I'm not having any problems with the fine liner. This is absolutely not turning out how I imagined it in my head, but I'm secretly quite enjoying it. And I'm really enjoying the brush tips on these because I love the brush tips on these markers. Okay, so let's pull some of this down here. Oh, that went well. That was odd. These are like proper wonky. Oh my goodness. Do you know what? I've just decided I'm going to cross hatch here as well. I don't know if that's helped me any, but it's made me feel better. So this part in here, I'm just going to use the red. I'm not going to use any yellow at all. And I'm going to try and get a good couple of layers down in here. And it actually doesn't matter if the fine liner isn't completely dry, because if it's a wee bit muddy, that's just going to add to the feel, you know, like, yeah, it looks pretty tucked in there. Good stuff. Excellent. Now, these two arms, I'd love to know the proper names for these. You know, I like to know the proper names for things, but some of them do have like a sort of, I was going to say a bevel, that's the wrong word, but they have facets. And I'm not really sure if I want to complicate things even more for myself, but I am a complete sucker for punishment, so yeah, we're going to try. So again, this one at the front is going to be fairly easy. So I'm going to leave that pencil line in there just for my own sanity and my own benefit. So I'm just going to take one at a time here, and I'm going to get my yellow down first. And while that's still sort of sitting on the paper, then I can bring out some of this here. And round that corner there. Okay, once that's dry, I can actually see that's still wet sitting there. I will go back in with my fine liner, I think, just to define that a little bit more. And see, this is one of those things where leaving your pencil marks in is actually helpful, because you can still see them very slightly through your ink. Now I'm going to avoid the actual glass case in here, because we're going to do something with that as well, just for funsies. So while I'm waiting for that to dry a little bit, we do want to have some sort of, say, background. I use that term very loosely. I'll probably be able to see a wee bit of that through there as well. Oh. And I find it best when you're putting in a cast shadow, I find it best to do it with a graphite pencil. So again, the light source is coming that way, so it's actually going to be casting a shadow back the way. So in here is going to be in shadow, and then that's going to come down to here. That's probably going to be quite a long shadow though. Again, if I was in the finished image, if I was feeling a wee bit braver, I would probably put it in fine liner. I always like to run a little bit of a line, even though it's not technically correct, but it's just to ground the object. It's not really for any other reason. I find it quite ironic that we're casting a shadow onto a lamp, but there you go. There we go. That helps. That helps a little bit. Alrighty, that's looking a lot better than I thought it was going to be, so we'll just leave it at that. I've decided I'm not going to put a background in, because as I say, this is more of like a training picture. So the next step is I'm going to dilute down some of these markers. So I have Surgical Spirit. It's called rubbing alcohol in the US. I remember the name this time. And this is really straightforward. You need to have a pipette for this, and I don't use good paintbrushes, I always use old paintbrushes, just in case, but I've never had any problems with, with it messing with the fibres, but just in case. So we want to decide what colour we're going to use, so I'm going to start with the yellow, and I've just got a wee palette here. So I'm just going to squeaky some marker down in here. Ugh. And then I'm going to get some of my Surgical Spirit, and in this first one I'm going to put in quite a few drops and really water it down, and then in the second one I'm only going to put 1 or 2 drops. I'm going to use a smaller paintbrush for this, so this is a number 4 round, and we just want to mix this up, and I'm going to put a layer of this down on my glass area here. Now it is going to look quite dark and quite wet to begin with. You do have to give it a chance to dry. And again, because this is a uni pin, I know it's going to be okay with stuff like this. So it's not, we're not going to have to worry about any smudgy. And we'll just leave that to dry. It does evaporate fairly quickly, but while that's doing that, I'm going to do my blue as well. And again, just a few drops. Give my brush a clean off. I'm going to use a slightly larger brush to start with. So this is a 10 round. This is one of the first paintbrushes I ever bought. This is going to be emanating up and out like this. Okay, so that's fairly dry now. I have caused a little bit of bleed up here. I wasn't careful enough, but again, that's okay. So where the crack is, I'm actually going to mark it in with the marker. So there's the broken part, and then we're just going to have a couple of lines coming out there. And then we're going to take our lesser dilution, and I'm going to give this a second coat. Now, This is because this is 2 layers of glass, because you've got the part round the back and you've got the part on the front as well. Now again, I can do this in much more detail and, you know, depict it a lot better with a much larger range of colours in pencil, but for the purposes of what we've got here, pop this in. So I'm trying not to disturb the lines that I've put in with the marker too much. I have to say the paper's not taking this very well. While this is still damp though, I can put in these lines. And I'm just thinking as well, my shadow's not really doing much for me in pencil, so I'm going to erase it and I'm going to put in some lines with my fine liner. I feel it's more fitting to what we've got going on because we're fairly vibrant here, to be fair. And lastly, just thinking about reflections and shadows, you maybe want to add in a little bit here and there. Okay, yeah, so that's it, guys. I don't really know what to say about this. It's been a bit of an experience for me today, but that's half the fun. And as I say, I'm quite tempted to do this as a pencil drawing and really get a lot of detail and things in for this kind of thing. In terms of this being a box, I was actually really happy with it as a box, and some people were like, I'm not really bothered about markers, etc, etc. I found this quite rewarding actually, and it was really nice to have premium products like Copics in a box, because it's something that we don't get very often. So I would love to know your thoughts on this. I would also love to know what you are going to do for your Scrawler challenge if you haven't done it already. This video is quite late, so I'm assuming that most of you will be done by now. I've actually had quite good fun. Once I got over that initial stressor of deciding what I was doing here, it's actually been quite good fun. So bravo once again to Scrawlrbox, and I will see you back in the cave really soon for another video, everyone. So please stay safe and take care of each other, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.